I keep talking on these videos about enlightenment, and like Van Morrison said, I don't really know what it is actually. I think what I'm essentially doing is just exploring a metaphor, and when I think about it, the metaphor keeps detaching from my own personal experience. So I find myself talking quite rhapsodically about the concept of enlightenment and about illuminated spaces of the mind and high vantage positions from which one can gain some kind of panoptical worldview or a distributed viewpoint, essentially visual metaphors. And whilst I can feel a certain amount of connection to those ideas from my own personal experience, there is, as I say, a slight mismatch. I feel like I'm being a little bit hubristic sometimes. So I've been trying to think how to simplify my language, or to think about it in ways which better map onto my own experience. So now I'm kicking around ideas to do with happiness rather than enlightenment. Happiness is it's not a simpler concept, but it seems to be one which perhaps I can relate to more intuitively, perhaps, something like that. And where I'm at with that right now is thinking about how the word happiness, or the concept of happiness, features within positive psychology. Positive psychology, as I understand it, being a branch of psychology which is not to do with, or certainly not solely to do with pathology or some sort of illness. It's to do with optimization, improvement, better usage of one's own psychology, that kind of thing. And a few things that have come out of that so far for me is firstly that, to do with happiness, firstly that happiness is not the absence of sadness or the absence of depression. So if someone is depressed and you take away that depression, you don't make them happy. You might make them empty, or you might give them no motivation, or you might do all sorts of things, but you don't make them happy. Depression is an active state, the removal of which does not lead to a positive state of happiness. Although it may be a necessary precursor, it's possible, I would imagine. I don't know this for a fact. In order to be happy, you probably have to get rid of the depression first. But it's a different process to do that, and it's a different concept that you're dealing with. Assuming that's out of the way, and you have either taken away the depression, or taken away the symptoms of depression, or taken away the causes of depression, then you're into the situation of happiness. Then you're into a position where you can perhaps mobilize techniques for synthesizing, creating, accepting happiness. And again, from positive psychology, there are three levels at which this works. Things always seem to come in threes, but there you go. And this is my understanding of it so far. The first is what someone, I can't remember the name of this person, I'll find out, refers to as the pleasant life, which is happiness as it's usually, I guess, colloquially referred to. It's the kind of happiness that is brought about by eating nice food, having a pleasant walk in the country, making friends. Come on, pups, go turn around now. Spending time with your dogs, for example. It's very grounded in the behaviours of the body, the maintenance and optimization processes of the mind in a physical environment, enjoyment, pleasure, it's those kind of things really. And the optimization of that state would be brought about by enabling a better appreciation of those stimuli. So savouring, for example, savouring one's food as opposed to simply bolting it, or really giving full attention to contact with one's friends and acquaintances would be an assist to the development of the pleasant life and that level of happiness. That's just the starting point, as I understand it, though. There's another level, the second level, which I can't remember how it's phrased, but it corresponds to psychological states like flow, which Mihai Csikszentmihalyi talks about, and which I think are analogues for other kinds of psychological states, like unself-conscious engrossment, which comes out of Irving Goffman, like absorption, which Aaron Gershwitz talks about. It's that kind of complete loss of ego in favour of an immersion in the activity in which one is engaged. Engagement isn't the phrase. So you find it in, for example, in Zen techniques, and I'm reminded of Herriman's essay on Zen and archery, where you optimize your performance in archery by kind of eradicating your separation from the activity. So there is just the action taking place, but alongside with the optimization of performance that corresponds to that kind of dissolution of one's ego into the action is also a state of mind. I always say consciousness, because consciousness kind of disappears at that point. A state of mind in which one feels oneself to be kind of timeless, and it sort of corresponds with happiness. There's something else on that actually. Oh yeah, you also find it in sportsmen, I think, that activity. They call it being in the zone, I think. And it has that sort of unproblematic sense of mastery. So there is this sense in which one is undisturbed. It's the happiness of being undisturbed because of the unproblematic sense. So that's the second level. It's also sometimes called eudaimonia, I think, which is a Greek word. It comes out of Greek philosophy. Usually translated as something like human flourishing. I mean, I think there's a slightly wider understanding of human flourishing than simply corresponding with this mental state I'm talking about. But it has that sense. It seems to be located within the individual. That's the second stage. You've got happiness at the bottom, the pleasant life, to do with savouring and enjoying one's experiences. The higher level, which is to do with flow, absorption, unself-conscious engrossment, which is to do with dissolving the separations between self and action. The third level in this paradigm is to do with purpose or mission. And again, I'm reminded of Rick Warren's book, which I do have problems with, I have to say, not being Christian. But he's probably not wrong in terms of the ideas he's presenting in some ways. Purpose or mission or a kind of higher ambition, a higher goal is the third level. Considered to be a higher level or a more profound level. I don't know why exactly, but it just is. And that, as I say, is the submission of oneself to a higher goal. And I use the term submission advisedly, remembering that the word Islam translates as submission. So it might be submission in terms of kind of religious submission, or it may be political, or it may be or in terms of some other kind of larger structure one feels oneself to be intimately connected to, and which is greater than oneself. So one would quite happily give one's life for that goal, that mission, that purpose. And so the level of happiness, if that's the right term, that is achievable with a purpose-driven life is necessarily more encompassing than that which is possible at either a condition of flow, which again is limited to the human being, or a condition of pleasure, which is limited perhaps to the senses. But I should add that these things aren't separate. There's an intimate connection between those things. I'm not quite sure how that connection works yet. That's something I'm going to be working on next. But that's what I'm looking at right now. So I may still talk about enlightenment because I'm quite fascinated by it. But right now I'm thinking of it in terms of, or I'm switching the focus and the paradigm temporarily across to happiness.